So, you guys likely aren't conscious of this, but my dad's a huge fan of Hellboy and really loves this movie. I also like this film and even remember watching the film on streaming. I had no fucking idea why this film was established on Awful Movies Wiki, because it's not at all a bad movie and is just an erroneous inclusion. Sure, it has issues, but it's far from an abomination. First things first, the action scenes are exuberant with amazing practical effects of the SAML and good editing and stakes that don't feel all too exiguous. The subway tunnel, for instance, makes advantageous use of a transition between where a character is positioned for the tunnel of the subway station. Plus sword choreography, how can you hate this one quite feasibly? Score is amazing and utilizes some amazing sound for emotional scenes. Professor Broom's death and the scene between Liz and Anung Rama, Hellboy's real name, are very sepulchral and carry a lot of emotional weight because of the stakes it has throughout. The CGI is pretty good for the most part. As I mentioned, with practical effects for not just the SAML and not just the spikes at one of the final scenes of the movie, the CGI doesn't look all too terrible for a $66 million budget movie, and the studios weren't perfidious enough to waste that one stuff that doesn't require CGI and makes necessary use for CGI, like the creatures at the climax of the movie, for instance. It emphasizes very gregarious character development, from Hellboy having an insatiable appetite and a captivating interest for cats. There was a cordial scene where he saves a litter of kittens and almost seems like he were to peculate them, lol, but also Abe Sapien and his capabilities and liking for rotten eggs. The cinematography is immaculate and has a lot of pulchritude to detail, whether you're watching the film in full screen or widescreen. Unfortunately, the film suffers some plot holes. One, the baby Ruth bar that Broom was in possession of for Hellboy when he was just a baby is somehow in immaculate condition, despite the fact that it could have been crushed with the inimical injury he suffered and crawling afterwards. 2. Broom is also exasperated about Hellboy leaving the house and has a strict, vitriolic rule against it, but there's a moment during the film where he doesn't retaliate him for it or mention his absence until his eventual death. 3. This movie interprets Liz and her overcoming her powers incinerating at random moments, but doesn't fully indicate the full process of her overcoming it and is just brief, like she just managed to overcome it, and doesn't fully explain. 4. How did the villains know where Hellboy was positioned and his companions? After obliterating a myriad of SAMLs, the movie transitions randomly to Hellboy in captivity and doesn't explain how him, Liz and his other companion were found. Sometimes, the CGI is pretty bad, though it's excusable for budget constraints. From the SAML being resuscitated to one shot of the right hand of Doom to the jumping effects of both Hellboy and the SAML, though it doesn't exacerbate to the level of Catwoman, to the sledgehammer at a precarious bridge with impact of occurrence ruining it. The villain deaths are pretty underwhelming. Cronin, for instance, dies when he's penetrated to the spike, with the final blow being a piece of gear, but it lacks impact with what the movie previously indicated. The other 2 villains just die when they're simultaneously crushed by the creature summoned. But overall, it's not a perfect movie, but it's a pretty underrated comic book movie for a film not adapted from a Marvel or DC property but rather Dark Horse. It makes propitious use of its script, practical effects with some good CGI, great acting with great character development and a cool score. It does suffer, however, plot holes, underwhelming villain deaths and some CGI issues. But in the end of the day, I'm gonna penetrate a rating of 7 out of 10. Let us know that if, comment below to like or dislike, subscribe, hit button notification. Thanks for watching, see you later, bye.